Georgia Alabama Sports Live wants to say thank you to one of our presenting sponsors, Buffalo Rock, and their partnership with everything that we do. And without business like Buffalo Rock, we wouldn't be able to go cover softball, volleyball games, every type of high school sport you can think of, local college games, and professional. So thank you to those businesses that support us, and specifically Buffalo Rock. And next time you're watching a Georgia Alabama Sports Live broadcast after a nice long day, why not enjoy it with a nice, refreshing Sorry? The best lemon lime soda around. Thank you to Sorry and Buffalo Rock for our partnership on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. I'm Thrift Barringer alongside Richard Holdridge. How are you, my man?
What's going on? I'm excited just about this weekend that we just had of not only high school football, college football, NFL. I'm telling you, this has been the craziest weekend I've ever witnessed in football.
Yeah, a lot of upsets that's happened. Makes you, again, DJ Jones says this all the time, throw out records, anything can happen. As you saw at Vanderbilt beats Alabama, which was unbelievable. I'll have that on unsolicited hot take.
Oh, I can't wait.
And I'm going to have my opinion on that. Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee loses, Michigan loses, USC loses, Miami almost loses. I mean, and then now we got Ohio State, Oregon coming up. It is the perfect time of year, in my opinion, right here, October, college football.
Thrift, I must have a flip phone in my hand because it looked like we traveled back to the year 2007.
Yeah, that was a lot of upsets that year. That's when number 2 kept getting upset. It seemed like every single week. That's when South Florida was number 2. California somehow got the number 2. Kansas got to number 2. I mean, think about the schools I just said got number 2 in 2007. All right, but this is high school football, and we had a pretty interesting Friday, Richard, to say the least, around our area. A couple of upsets that happened, a couple of big-time wins for programs, and then just lopsided defeats. So I'm looking forward to breaking all those down, Richard. And you were actually on the call for Carver and Shaw. We'll talk about that in a moment, but another quadruple header, successful quadruple header we did on Friday night.
Yeah, it really was a great Friday night. And by the way, Northside defeats Columbus in softball 5-0. That game was at 5:30. We were really interested in live streaming that game. I actually thought, man, could we pull this off? Could we get a 5th producer and try to live stream this game? Because that was just an incredible game.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll get that 5th producer, but you're right. It was a great game. We're actually going to get Columbus and Shaw. Those two teams are 1-2 in the region, and this is the final regular season game of the year for both teams. Richard, you'll be on the call for that Tuesday, but we'll talk about the upcoming schedule in that last segment. Let's go ahead and get into the quadruple header. Richard, before you throw up the scores, actually, you know what? Go ahead and throw up the scores. And let's talk about what happened around our area. Let's do the 4 games that we did. We'll first start with yours, Richard. Carver taking on Shaw. Now, that first half was interesting. You know, Carver led 20-0, I saw. But kind of recap what happened and why Carver continued to dominate as they get a big win over the Raiders.
Well, Carver was going into this game shutting out their opponents and outscoring their opponents 117-0. They came off of a big win over Hardaway 42-0. The week before, they beat Columbus 49-0. We know they beat Northside 26-0. Shaw was able to get a touchdown on him. And I know that it was 27-7. Shaw kind of made it a little bit interesting, but that Kelston Popcorn Tarver, which, by the way, was the Alex Quinney All-State Good Hands Player of the Game, right before the Carver and Shaw fans could even get into their seats at Kinnett Stadium, Kelston Tarver takes it to the house, 83 yards, and Carver's already up 7-0. There were some defensive blunders. I thought that Shaw's defense did a good job stopping Carver 3 times in that first half to keep it close. But that Carver defense was just all over Aaron Grant. He really had no time to throw the football, but he did get a big play, and Williams with a big run, and they were able to put it in for the score. But I thought this was a throwback, and Mike Peacock and I, we're both nostalgic guys. We were really had a lot of memories, although I didn't live in Columbus at the time, but I'm sure there was a lot of people listening that remember this rivalry in the early 2000s and seeing Shaw beat Carver in the playoffs in the semifinals, and then eventually losing to Peach County in 2006, and then Carver turning around and winning the state championship in 2007. And by the way, These are the only 2 schools, public schools, GHSA. I want to rephrase that because Pacelli did win a GIAA championship in 2022. These are the only 2 schools in Columbus that has won a state championship in the 2000s for the GHSA.
Yeah, Shaw in 2000, Carver in 2007. Carver also played for one in 2021. Shaw did in 2006. All right, moving on. Good win for Carver as they have a bye, and then they have the biggest game of the season against undefeated Sumter County, October the 17th. So looking forward to being on the call for that one. That's a Thursday night game coming up in 2 weeks. Pacelli plays Calvary for the first time either one of these schools have ever faced off, and Pacelli won this handily. The running back tandem of Jason Nelson, along with Zion Mabry. John Thompson is electric as a quarterback. The defense shut out Calvary. They didn't give up a touchdown, and they take care of business. This is back-to-back weeks scoring over 55 points, and now you're 4-3, and you got the biggest game of your season coming up this Friday, Buccelli Jug. For the first time ever, it's going to be on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. We'll have Dave Plata and Mike Peacock on the call for that one, Richard. So looking forward to it. But Pacelli got a good tune-up game against Calvary. If you're Calvary, though, that first half, I love the competitive fight. Not able to move the football, but the defense, I thought, did really well. Then just got wore down in the second half. But I like the improvement I've seen from Calvary. I know it has been a tough year for them, but the future's bright there for the Knights. But this night belonged to Pacelli.
You look at the schedule that Calvary has played this year. Now, Coach Brunson would tell you there are 2 games that they should have won. That game against Terrell County, it was a 1-possession game, and then there was a pick 6 thrown, and they lost 13-3. That game against Mount DeSales, where they lost 7-6. And they did get a win over Skipstone. It was a forfeit win, but everybody else is a powerhouse in the GIAA that can win a GIAA state championship. You look at the last couple of weeks, it's been tough, but you look how good Brookstone and Pacelli are. I want to see how they do against Westfield School. They take them on down in Perry, Georgia. Big shout out to our guy, Brett Taylor, who calls the games at Westfield School. I know he'll give us some score updates. And then senior night, they will take on Strong Rock. I want to see Calvary just finish the season strong, just try to be competitive and maybe possibly getting a win. I do think that there are some teams in the GIAA that Calvary does match up well with, and I think that Westfield School and Strong Rock are those teams that I think that they can probably make it competitive and possibly get a win.
Well, we're hoping so for Calvary's sake. I don't know about Westfield. They're the number 2 team in 3A. I think that's going to be a tough one, especially on the road in Perry. Another game that we did is Harris County and Griffin. This was a low-scoring affair. It was 24-0 late in the second half. Griffin scores 2 touchdowns in the end. But Harris County gets another win. They go to 6-1, and they have their biggest game of the season against undefeated Stars Mills.
There you go.
Harris County, Pacelli, and then Carver next week all got big games, and you're going to see all of them on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. Undefeated Stars Mills, they're ranked like top 10 in the state. Harris County, if they want to win the region, they got to beat Stars Mills. If they're able to do that, they got Central Carrollton on the road, and they will be region champs. But they had to get through Griffin first, winning this one 31-16.
Yeah, this sets up for a great matchup next week between the Stars Mill Panthers out of Fayetteville coming down to Hamilton, Georgia to take on the county. Stars Mills had a very close game against Central Carrollton at home. They won that by 3 points. I do think that the 2 top teams in this region, that Harris County has got to beat so they could try to win the region is Stars Mill and Central Carrollton. I think that Jonesboro's record, I think they kind of go back to the middle of the pack. Northside is still in it after getting a big win over Mundy's Mill. They take on Griffin this Thursday night. I think that if Northside could rattle off some wins, they'll be back into it and possibly get a playoff berth. But yeah, this is going to be the biggest game on Harris County's schedule so far. And how many times did we say that last year, Thrift? You remember you and Rick called that game against Sandy Creek, and then Harris County just continued winning. You look at their first 3 games this year, beating Manchester, Troup County, and Carver. I think that Stars Mill is no different. They are a team that we know their accolades. We know how great Stars Mill is, but this is definitely going to be an incredible game.
It definitely is, Richard. Moving on. The game of the night was undefeated Glenwood taking on undefeated Randolph County. And this night belonged to Glenwood. Now, in the first half, Randolph County actually took the lead on Glenwood 21-20. Glenwood then went on to score 3 consecutive touchdowns to be up 41-21. Yeah, that's right, 41-21 at the half. They scored 10 touchdowns. They ended up winning 68-40. Mackay Simpson had a receiving touchdown. He had multiple rushing touchdowns. He was great on defense. Levi Pender probably could have won player of the game. He was efficient as always. He's already eclipsed 1,000-yard mark passing this year. He's got 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on this season. Simpson and Brown's averaging 150 yards per game. He eclipsed that this week. Mackay Simpson now over 300 yards on the year. The defense made plays when they had to. I really like what I saw from this Glenwood team. They're 6-0. They're ranked 77th in Alabama coming into this week. So after this week, I think they're going to move up even higher. That's just in max preps in the entire state, all classifications. And 3A, I don't know how they're not a top 5 team right now. I know they're 8. They're going to probably move up, but they should be a top 5 team in the Alabama Sports Writers Poll. The Gators, 6-0. Lee Scott, now I'll mention that now. We won't spend a lot of time on it. They lost to a winless Dadeville team, 13-10 at home. That's Lee Scott's second loss. They also lost to Randolph County by 20. I think the Gators are so far ahead, better than everyone else in their region. I think they're finishing undefeated. The only reason Glenwood would lose is because they lost by doing something uncharacteristic of this team so far this season. But beating Randolph County by 28 the way they did, I'm starting to think state championship is definitely on the horizon in the first year of the AHSAA. Gators getting it done once again. And they are, I think, the best offensive team up there with Central we have in our area, Richard. Here's what they got. 21, 49, 37, 36, 62, and 68 points. That's a lot of points, Richard.
Yeah. Well, when you have an efficient quarterback in Levi Pender that's got weapons all around, Jermaine Brown, Mackay Simpson, Mason McCrane, River Baker, Cal Lawrence, that catch on a dime by Mason McCrane, it was just a thing of beauty. And Levi Pender's just got confidence in the offense, and it really starts with that O-line play led by Tyler Sykes and just the rest of the O-line that's really been plugging those holes. And I think that, Glenwood was tested that first game against Valley. They were down 20-0. They win that game 21-20. After that, they've blown away, not just they really good teams. Elba is one of the top teams in 1A. They knocked out Beulah, who won again. So Beulah's pretty good this year. And of course,
Beulah's
Randolph
5-2.
5-2.
Sorry to interrupt, Richard, but Beulah's 5-2 this year. Sorry about that, everyone. And they lost to Lee Scott and Glenwood. Yeah. And Glenwood, this is back-to-back games. They scored 62. I just tallied up the points. Right now, they average 45.5 points a game. Nice. They are the best offense right now in our area. All things are clicking. Offensive coordinator Earl Alexander, along with Ryan Nelson, it seems like every single play call they dial up is the right one. And they are just on fire. And I think the Gators are rolling, man. 6-0. How about that big-time win?
Huge win for Coach Ryan Nelson and the Glenwood Gators. By the way, it was homecoming. I know a lot of Glenwood fans and alumni and students were at the game, and it was just a great time just to celebrate being a Glenwood Gator.
And right now, the Gators are 2 games up on Randolph County. Remember, they have to lose twice now. Randolph County's in second. Lee Scott's already has 2 losses. So Glenwood would have to lose to them and lose another one to be tied with Lee Scott to lose the region. If they beat Lee Scott, they will pretty much have clinched the region at this point because they already beat Beulah. And if they beat Dadeville and Lee Scott in back-to-back weeks, that's it. They will finish 6-0 in region play. The Glenwood Gators, unbelievable start. All right, let's keep moving forward. Kendrick and Jordan. I picked Jordan to win this game. So did Rick Beach on high school game day. We were so wrong, it wasn't even funny. Coach Mayo team 41-0 gets their second win of the season and a great win for the Kendrick Cherokees.
I'm really interested to see how Kendrick faces against Hardaway and Columbus. I thought that Kendrick beating the Walker School 38-0 to start the season. I thought that maybe Kendrick would be a team that could compete for a playoff. And I'll be honest with you, this was a very impressive win. They haven't had the season they've wanted to have so far. I mean, they've had some disappointing losses, but I think that Coach Mayo, he's the right guy just to build this Kendrick offense. As for Jordan, they're continuing to develop. I think Coach McDaniel is the right guy. I mean, they will get there. It was just Kendrick's night. I mean, it was homecoming, and the Kendrick Cherokee alumni faithful, they're really celebrating after getting a big win.
No doubt about it, man. And by the way, the Gators are ranked number 6 according to Max Preps.
There you go.
3A. Another great game with Sumter County Spencer, and Spencer Greenways were this close. That's back-to-back. Sumter County's had 1-point wins over Shaw and Spencer that came down on the wire. I don't think it's going to be close against Carver. That's just in my opinion. I think they're going to go in undefeated, and I think Carver's going to humble them. That's just me. Spencer, though, great game. I got a text. CJ Starr had another 18 tackles and was just all over the field. But they come up just short. Coach Kegler's team still in the thick of things when in terms of playoffs, but now they're 2 games back of both Sumter County and Carver. So that's going to make it. It's going to make it tough now to be an automatic bid into the playoffs, Richard.
Yeah, Spencer's now 2-2 in the region. Shaw is 2-2. They face each other in 2 weeks. They both will have a bye. Again, another team from Columbus that almost beat Sumter County. They lose by 1 point. I mean, it's starting to become so close. Spencer was right there to try to get a win, and now Spencer's going to have to regroup. I think that they got the team to do it. I really cannot wait for that game against Shaw because I think the winner of that game is going to make the playoffs. I
agree with you on that. The game of the night. And battle of undefeateds, the Goliath matchup, number 1 versus number 2 in 7A of Alabama. Auburn comes to Garrett Harrison Stadium and takes down the defending state champions and stops the winning streak 38-33. They were up 38-27 late in the 4th. Central scored the touchdown to get it within 5, but they come up short. How about this upset? I actually picked Auburn. No, I didn't. I thought Central was going to win, but in my head, I wanted to pick Auburn. I just didn't want to ever pick against Pat Nix, but the Auburn Tigers now will be the number 1 team and the favorite to win the 7A state championship this year.
How about Coach Danny Etheridge and the Auburn Tigers and their running back, Omar Mabson, who's one of the best running backs in the state. Auburn, from start to finish, if you look at their season, and it's really just a team effort. Jackson Kilgore, he's got 10 touchdown passes for the Auburn Tigers. They have beaten everybody on their schedule. The only close game they had was against Opelika, but you look at the remaining portion of their schedule, I think the biggest test is when Auburn takes on Carver and Montgomery. They'll take them on in 2 weeks. They do play Smith Station, and they do play Dothan. But this is really setting up nicely for Auburn to be the top seed. And I expect Auburn to jump up in the newest rankings and be the number 1 team in 7A.
All right, moving on. A couple of other games that happened of note. We'll hit on them quickly before we take a break. Northside beats Monday's Mill, dominates them. Monday's Mill doesn't have a win. I expected this. They needed this win. Kingston Rivers looked great. Northside goes to 4-2 now on the season. Upson Lee upsets Troup County, but Russell County, that's the one I wanted to end on, beat Stanhope, and they go to 6-1, Rich. How about the Russell County Warriors? Just keep winning, baby. We're going to be there when they play Rehoboth, but how about that win against Stanhope? Bryson Riggins just keeps dialing it up.
Yeah, he had another 2 touchdown passes. Russell County, like you mentioned, 6-1. They're going to make the playoffs. I think that they can go to 9-1, and they got some winnable games. I see them beating Rehoboth, definitely. I think that they could beat Pike Road. I think that is definitely a possible chance. I mean, beating another region opponent on the road. We saw this against Wetumpka. We saw this against Percy Julian. And now they do that to Stanhope Elmore, a team that actually beat Russell County last year. But 6-1, looking at the schedule, they have a bye. Then they take on Pike Road on October the 18th. This is going to be a massive game. And then Rehoboth. We'll have that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live October 25th, November 1st. They take on the Beauregard Hornets. And that Beauregard's a good team too, but this is a non-region game. I see Russell County going 8-2, 9-1, and making the playoffs, possibly hosting a couple of playoff games.
That is incredible, man. So here is Week 8 slate. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to drop this week's ratings poll. Time to ruffle some feathers. Don't go anywhere on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. You're watching right now the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this. Football is back, and the only thing that makes it better is some delicious food from Zaxby's. They're a proud sponsor of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And I can tell you that everyone on this team loves their chicken. Get all the favorites, such as their signature chicken sandwich, or try the new chicken finger tacos with your favorite drink. From amazing salads, wings, chicken fingers, and some of the best drinks around, there isn't a better way to enjoy our broadcast without getting some fantastic meals from Zaxby's. Check out the 2 here in Phoenix City, one off Crawford Road and the other on US 80. Thank you again to Zaxby's for sponsoring Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and make sure you call them for all your catering and tailgating needs this football season.
My name is Quinteria Perry, and this is my CVCC story. I've graduated from CVCC with my associates in medical assistant, and I received my certification from CVCC. The training that I got from CVC and being prepared to come and do clinicals helped tremendously. I started looking at scholarships, and the Ambassador Scholarship was interesting to me because you did events to earn your scholarship and you meet people. My favorite part about my job is meeting patients every day. They will crack me up every day. They make my day better. I would recommend CVCC to anyone that asks because of the scholarships, the teachers, the small stuff that you can't get at a university. They actually take the time out for each student.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion. I'm thirsty.
Try this.
Starry.
It's a lemon lime soda that's crisp, clear, and
So refreshing.
Bro, chill. It was a soda. Starry lemon lime soda. It's different. Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC offers popular full-size trucks with a legacy of strength and durability. Side by side, the new Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra 1500s, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or big, heavy-duty Chevy and GMC 2500s, discounted up to $8,000 off. Rugged durability, powerful engines, and advanced technology. Choose your perfect truck today at Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Georgia Alabama Sports Live wants to say thank you to one of our presenting sponsors, Buffalo Rock, and their partnership with everything that we do. And without business like Buffalo Rock, we wouldn't be able to go cover softball, volleyball games, every type of high school sport you can think of, local college games, and professional. So thank you to those businesses that support us, and specifically Buffalo Rock. And next time you're watching a Georgia Alabama Sports Live broadcast after a nice long day, why not enjoy it with a nice, refreshing Sorry? The best lemon lime soda around. Thank you to Sorry and Buffalo Rock for our partnership on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
Welcome to the Campus Academy Private School, where every student is celebrated for their individuality. With personalized curriculum, students unlock their potential, growing into confident learners. At the Campus Academy, we give teachers the freedom to create dynamic classrooms where every student's voice is heard. Discover the difference. Enroll your child today and watch them thrive.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that long break. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. Time to ruffle some feathers, Rich. We always do it every week. Throw them up. It's this week's high school ratings poll. It was hard as Richard's looking for it.
Yeah, I was.
Move Glenwood up in the top 2 after what they did. But here is our top 10. Not much happened, Richard. Not really a lot of shakeup. Honestly, I don't think any of the teams really moved from last week. Everybody won except for Shaw and Spencer, but everybody else won. So I guess Pacelli moved ahead of Spencer. That'd be the only one that kind of was, I guess, the movement. So number 10, Shaw, 3-4, lost to Carver. Coach Gardner's team, they need to win out if they want to make the playoffs this year. I think they're going to have a tough time if they lose to Spencer, finish 5-5, making the playoffs. So if you're Shaw, you need to win your next 3 games, finish 6-4, and then hope you can get in there as one of them at-large bids. And if you're Spencer, I know you lost to Sumter, but if you went out and finished 7-3, there's no doubt in my mind the Greenways are going to be a team that makes the playoffs. They got Hardaway and Shaw, I know, are 2 of the teams they have to finish out the rest of the season. So Shaw number 10, Spencer number 9, Richard.
Yeah, you mentioned that all the teams at the top ended up winning. This is exactly the opposite of what happened in the poll in college football. But I think that Shaw and Spencer, we're going to see a matchup in 2 weeks, and we hope to have that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Winner of that game, I believe, in my mind, goes to the playoffs.
Next, number 8, Pacelli. They were 2-3. They've won back-to-back. They've scored over 50 points in consecutive games, and they are 2-0 in the region. They take on Brookstone. If they beat Brookstone, Pacelli may be hosting a playoff game right now. In the GIAA rankings, they're number 7. They get a win against number 2 Brookstone. Obviously, they're going to catapult up, and they'll catapult up in our rankings too. But the Vikings get a win at Calvary. They stay at number 8 at 4-3. And Northside gets a big win over Mundy's Mill on the road. Not a great Mundy's Mill team, but gets the Northside back in the win column. They go to 4-2. Their running backs were sensational. And Northside, it's between Northside, Jonesboro, Stars Mill, Harris County, and Central of Carrollton. 4 of those 5 teams are going to make it. Who's going to be left out? Right now, Northside would be one of the teams maybe left out. Between them and Jonesboro, they need to get a win against Central Carrollton at the end of the year. They got Stars Mills coming up. So we'll see how Northside finishes out. Pacelli 8, Northside 7.
Yeah, Pacelli having a big game against Brookstone this week at Diamond Field, the battle for the Brucelli Jug. It's really going to speak volumes if Pacelli's able to beat Brookstone once again. And not only would they get to keep the Brucelli Jug, but like you mentioned, Thrift, they're going to catapult in the rankings in the GIAA. As far as Northside, they got a winnable game this Thursday night at Kinnett Stadium. They take on the winless Griffin Bears. I'm very interested to see this slate of road games where they take on Stars Mill and Jonesboro. If they could just split those two games, then they will host Central of Carrollton, and that could be for a playoff spot.
Yeah,
I love just the receiving core of, Kingston Rivers, who's not only a receiver but a running back, Jay Jackson, and hopefully the health of Caden Clay is really what we are all concerned about. I don't know if he played in that game against Mundy's Mill. Hopefully we'll see him back on the field for a Thursday night game. It's really the lone game in the area, in the Columbus area. If you're able to want to see Northside, that's the perfect opportunity, is to come on out to Connect Stadium and see them play the Griffin Bears. But I like where Northside is at. We moved them up because they did beat Mundy's Mill. Yeah, but they do have a tough schedule going forward.
Yes, they do. Number 6, Brookstone Cougars. The Cougars didn't have a game. They had a bye this week. They're number 2 in the GIAA. They're number 6 in our poll. They beat Brookstone. I think they'll be hosting, obviously, throughout the playoffs until the state championship. And the Cougars are 4-2, so nothing changed for them because they had a bye. Russell County, I guess they've been the surprise team of our area. 6-1. That ties the most wins the program's had in 10 years when they had that a few years ago. Richard, you were the PA announcer when they won. Last time they went 6-4. But this year, 6-1, and they're thinking more than just being happy to make the playoffs. They're thinking deep run in the playoffs. They win this past week. Bryson Riggins, if you don't know who he is, you need to look him up now. The guy's going to be playing at the next level. Dylan Griggs, this is his best team by far. Russell County 5, Brookstone 6, Richie Rich.
Yeah, we talk about Bryson Riggins all the time, but there's some names I want to mention on that defense, including Cameron Reese, who is the leading tackler. You also have Cameron Murray. If you look at Isaiah Thomas, I mean, they're leading the team with sacks. How about Trenton Samuel with 5 sacks? He's only a freshman. It's that defense is just continuing to get better, but it's also the weapons that Bryson Riggins has, as Devin Brown leads the team with 16 rushing touchdowns. We know about Denver Harper and Jamari Burnett, but the sophomore Quentin Lewis has really come on. I saw him make an impact in that game against Eufaula. And you look at the schedule, they do have a bye. Just they need to rest their players because they have got to get ready for Pike Road. This could be for the region. If they beat Pike Road in 2 weeks, they're winning the region. And I also think Rehoboth is another tough game. We'll have that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And we'll wrap up the season against Beauregard, but we'll know whether or not Russell County wins the region. And I can't remember a time that it's been since they won the region. It has to be over 15 years ago. Hopefully somebody can correct me on that. I know they haven't made the playoffs in over 10 years. So this is history in the making for the Russell County Warriors.
Yeah, excellent job for Russell County as they win a big game against a really good team this past week. All right, number 4 is the Glenwood Gators. And Glenwood goes to 6-0. Richard, it was tough for me, man. It was actually really tough for me not to want to say that this team is moving up to like number 2. I really wanted to, but the Gators stay at number 4. I just can't put them over Carver and Harris County yet. But if they finish undefeated, I may have them as the second best team in our region. Glenwood staying in the top 4. Ryan Nelson is right now the best offensive mind we have in our area. He's got the hottest offense at 45.5 points per game, back-to-back 60-point games. He's got an elite, efficient quarterback. He's got 2 running backs in Simpson and Brown, a workhorse in Brown. He's got guys on the perimeter like Mason McCrane. The defense has got a good defensive line. The offensive line is great at run blocking and pass blocking. The Gators just keep winning.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Nelson, he's got some pretty good accolades. He was the offensive coordinator at Central. But, you look at Glenwood, I mean, it's really an all-around team effort. I mean, and really, it starts with Levi Pender, but you got to give credit to the D lineman, Emory Davis. How many times has Emory Davis been in that backfield and able to make pressure? And we saw that throughout the season. That gives Glenwood great field position, and that's why they're able to score at will, because the defense really helps them out and gets the offense ready to be back out there, and that really wears out the other defense. The offense just clicks because they have a tandem of running backs of Mekhi Simpson and Brown. And when you look at Mekhi Simpson and Jermaine Brown, when you look at the balanced offensive attack that Levi Pender has, no wonder why they've been able to score at will against these teams, and not just teams that are decent teams. These are top teams in 3A that they're able to beat. And so I think that Glenwood could go undefeated. But that game against Lee Scott, that's going to be tough. And next week on the road, taking on Dadeville, who beat Lee Scott. You don't want to overlook Dadeville, but
absolutely not.
You got Dadeville, Lee Scott, and then you wrap up the season against Sylacauga. That's a non-region game. I do believe, Thrift, you mentioned that if they beat Dadeville, they're region champions, because Lee Scott's already got 2 region losses. Randolph County, they have the tiebreaker with Randolph County. So if they have 1 loss and Randolph County's got 1 loss, they win the tiebreaker. So I believe Glenwood's going to be region champions if they could beat Dadeville next week.
Well, they got to beat them. They got to beat Lee Scott. So we'll see what happens with the Glenwood Gators as they finish out the season.
Well, Number 3, Lee Scott has 2 losses in the region already. So even if they lose to Lee Scott and they beat Dadeville, they'll be region champions.
Right. I said all this, in that last segment. All right, number 3, the Carver Tigers come in 6-1, big win over Shaw. They are looking like a team that's going to be 9-1 and ranked in the top 3 as a favorite to win it all. They're my favorite. Their offense is clicking. Their defense is shutting out everyone. They've given up 1 touchdown in the last 4 games. And ever since that Harris County game, this has been a completely different team. Carver, number 3, Harris County. That slip up against Jonesboro looks like an anomaly. They win against Griffin. It's back-to-back double-digit wins that they've had against Northside and Griffin. They have Stars Mills coming into town. They beat Stars Mill. They look like the favorite to win this region. Harris County and Stars Mills, sign me up for that one. That will be on Georgia Alabama Sports Live this Friday. And then the number 1 team, the Central Red Devils. They did lose to Auburn, but we weren't ready to bring them down yet. That loss against Auburn is a better loss in Harris County, if you can say it that way, than Harris County's Jonesboro loss and Carver's Harris County loss. Now, I know Glenwood's the only undefeated team, but just not ready yet to put Glenwood ahead of Carver, Harris County, and Central. I'm going to keep them number 4, but I tell you this, if Glenwood finishes undefeated, they will not be number 4 in our rankings. But there's 1, 2, and 3. Central, Harris County, Carver staying where they're at.
I do want to say Central will take on Carver Montgomery at home this Friday. We know that's going to be a tough game. And then on the 18th of October, they will travel up to Bulldog Stadium to take on Opelika. Last time they played Opelika up there, they lost. And so these are going to be some tough opponents. I think that Central has just got to regroup and find a way to get back on track. They had some close wins this season, but right now they are looking up at Auburn. And I'm just very interested to see what Carver Montgomery and Opelika do, because they are also in the thick of it. And I just want to briefly just look at the standings so far in 7A Region 2, because Auburn's 4-0. Opelika, Carver Montgomery, and Central, all 3-1. So these are huge games, and I think these are the 4 teams that make the playoffs. Enterprise is 2-2. Dothan is 0-4. Smith Station's 0-4. I think that the playoffs are going to be set up for Auburn, Opelika, Carver, Montgomery, and Central to all make the playoffs.
I think that's a great point, Richard. All right, let's put them up, and we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll preview what we have coming up this week on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, plus what's the football slate looking like, and more. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. We'll be right back after this. You're watching right now the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show that is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Get ready to smile. We'll be right back after this. Football is back, and the only thing that makes it better is some delicious food. from Zaxby's. They're a proud sponsor of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. And I can tell you that everyone on this team loves their chicken. Get all the favorites, such as their signature chicken sandwich, or try the new chicken finger tacos with your favorite drink. From amazing salads, wings, chicken fingers, and some of the best drinks around, there isn't a better way to enjoy our broadcast without getting some fantastic meals from Zaxby's. Check out the two here in Phoenix City, one off Crawford Road and the other on US 80. Thank you again to Zaxby's for sponsoring Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. And make sure you call them for all your catering and tailgating needs this football season. Welcome back, everybody, to Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Show, presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC, Gordy Eye Care, CVCC, Pepsi, and Zaxby's. Also, thank you to Masterwall, the Beck Center, State Farm, Carroll Purdue, Alex Quinney, Allstate Agency, and Terry Johnson Agency. We appreciate their support of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. Also, Rick Knight and Harris County, and the Harris County Sheriff's Department also being a supporter of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. All right, let's move on and let's throw up the poll, Rich, and not the poll, the schedule for this upcoming week. We got 2 Thursday games, one of them LaGrange and Mary Persons, and then, Richard likes throwing those LaGrange teams up there. And then Griffin at Northside. I think Northside goes to 5-2 and gets a big win over Griffin. Griffin is not a good football team right now, and I think Northside gets 2 much-needed wins, 5-2, and they got 3 tough games to finish out. Central Carrollton, Stars Mills, and Jonesboro. Those are the 3 teams they got to finish out with. So if they win all 3 of those teams, against those teams, they're obviously in the playoffs. If they go 1-2, I think they're still in the playoffs, Richard. If they go 0-3, obviously they're going to miss out. So we'll see what happens with Northside. But they got Griffin this Thursday.
Yeah, and I expect Northside to beat Griffin too. I mean, Griffin's just having a tough time with teams from our area. They've lost to Spencer, they've lost to Harris County, and I expect them to lose to Northside. And it's going to be a Thursday night game where Northside is 1-1 in the region. They are looking at Harris County and Central, both 2-1. Stars Mill is undefeated. They are tied with Jonesboro, 1-1, and I think this is going to be for them to go to 2-1. And then taking on Stars Mill and Jonesboro. I know that if Northside could just get one of those wins, I think that Northside is going to be in the playoffs. Because I look at the top 2 teams, I think it's going to be Stars Mill and Harris County, Central Carrollton, and then you're fighting for that 4th and final playoff spot between Northside and Jonesboro. So, and remember, this is 4A. So everything 4A and above, it's the top 4 teams. Everything 3A and below, it's just the 2 teams, and then you have an at-large poll.
All right, now moving on and moving forward, we have Columbus at Hardaway. So some of the games that we're going to be doing this upcoming week, we obviously have the Midtown Showdown. Me and Richard will be there for that one. You got Columbus at Hardaway. We actually have the press conference tomorrow. Richard, you'll be there for that with Chris Gates at 10:15. I'm going to try to be there as well, but I know you'll be there for sure. That's at 10:15 to preview the Midtown Showdown. Then the game, first time these 2 schools have faced off in some time, a rivalry between 2 historic schools. Looking forward to it. Coach McKenzie's team needs this win. If you're Columbus, you love nothing more than to upset your rival. It's going to be a lot of fun at Otis Spencer Stadium this Friday night.
I love how they brought back the Midtown Showdown. Both teams are 1-2 in the region, and it's going to be an event. Otis Spencer Stadium, it's Hardaway's homecoming, but they're also going to tailgate. I mean, they're going to be starting the tailgating festivities like 5:00 in the evening, and you've got Columbus and Hardaway. I know that we have a scheduled show, Office Hours, a real life of an AD, that's going to be playing this week. I know that Coach Mills and Coach McCoy are going to be talking this thing up on the show. We got Coach Mills, the AD of Hardaway, Coach McCoy, the assistant AD of Columbus. A lot of proud rivalries, a lot of proud alumni that is going to be involved in this event. And we really want to make this an event. This is really excited that we get to be a part of the inaugural Midtown Showdown.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Richard, and looking forward to seeing how that game plays out. Should be a lot of fun. I'm leaning towards the Hawks. Another game we're going to be doing is undefeated Stars Mills at Harris County. Stars Mills has been a perennial power in Georgia for football for quite some time. Harris County 6-1. The only loss at Jonesboro. Obviously, we were there for that by 2 on the road. I'm leaning Harris County. But if they're going to win this, it's got to be ugly, low scoring, obviously. But this is probably their biggest test of the season. This is the best team they have faced so far. So we're going to learn a lot about Harris County if we actually think they're state championship contenders. Obviously, they're region contenders, but are they state championship contenders? If they beat Stars Mills, you got to start saying they're going to bring home the Hardwell as well, Richard.
Yeah, Stars Mill. We know about Stars Mill. They went 10-4 last year. They lost in the semifinals to the eventual champion Perry. And so Stars Mill has not changed classifications. Last year, they were in the same classification as Thrift County and LaGrange. And so they're taking on a Harris County team that's going from 5A to 4A. And Stars Mill, we know about this just well-traditioned program. The baseball team won a state championship last year. They've got a great athletic program. A lot of great alumni has come from Stars Mill out of Fayetteville. I mean, I have family members that actually played at Stars Mill. So I mean, it's a big deal for my family because they know about how great Stars Mill is, and they're undefeated in the region. But this is going to be a big test because you know how tough Harris County can be at home.
Yeah, that's a great point, Richard. And the other game is the Brucelli Jug, and you got Brookstone, you got Pacelli. This rivalry, Pacelli's actually held on to the Jug for quite some time now, Richard. Brookstone did beat Pacelli in the playoffs last year en route to a state championship. But this is the biggest game of the year. It's the biggest rivalry we got in our area. These two schools literally cannot stand each other. We're going to have game day there. That's another thing, too. So game day is going to be unique this week. We're going to have Richard live on location at the Midtown Showdown. I'm going to be live on location at Brookstone Pacelli. So we're going to have 2 different locations for game day. Promise you it's going to be unique. It's going to be fun. Tune in this Friday at 5 o'clock to be able to see high school game day. Maybe 5:30, excuse me. High school game day, Brookstone Pacelli, and the Midtown Showdown. But what are you looking forward to with that Brucelli Jug, Richard?
Well, you know that Brookstone, which they mentioned.
And by the way, real quick, you got 2 starting quarterbacks, Broughton Branch and John Thompson, Richard, making their first starts against each other. So young quarterbacks, sophomores, getting their start in this hostile environment. Interested to see what's going to happen.
All right. So what I'm interested to see is how Brookstone just comes out and they feel, because they are ranked second in the GIAA, that they've got the team to bring the Brucelli Jug back to the campus of Brookstone. But Pacelli is playing at home. Pacelli is continuing to improve. All they got to do, that trio of running backs of Zion Mabry, Nelson, and you got to just hold on to the ball and just run the football. And I think that Pacelli just needs to keep Brookstone on the sidelines. By the way, the last time that Brookstone beat Pacelli in a regular season game, so this is the last time that they had the Brucelli Jug, it was back in 2020. So Brookstone really wants to bring that Brucelli Jug back. If you're staying at Pacelli, you want to try to keep that Brucelli Jug back on the campus of Pacelli. But this, in my opinion, I mean, you look at the rivalries. I mean, we got Hardaway, Columbus, Shaw, Kendrick, Carver, Spencer. I honestly think that Brookstone Pacelli is the most passionate rivalry because these two schools do not like each other. We know that, I mean, there is respect for these two schools, but you ask somebody that goes to Pacelli or you ask somebody that goes to Brookstone, that these two schools do not like each other. It's a similar result of Glenwood and Lee Scott. I mean, this is just a very intense rivalry.
Yes, it is. And moving forward now, it's like my new phrase, moving forward. Carver Montgomery at Central. This was going to be maybe number 1 versus number 2, but both teams lost, Richard, this past weekend. Did Carver Montgomery lose? Excuse me. I may stand corrected on that. But I know Central lost. But this is a big rivalry. And Central, last thing they want to do is not finish number 2 in the region. They need to beat Carver. But this is no slouch either. So it's like every single week, Central's having to play a top team.
Yeah, Carver Montgomery did lose to Enterprise 17-14.
Yes, that's what I thought. So both schools did lose. So we'll see how this one plays out. I'm definitely thinking Central rebounds and wins this game, but you can't overlook how good Carver Montgomery has been this year. And so we'll see what happens with the Red Devils.
Yeah, this is really an exciting matchup. I thought that both teams were going to come into this game undefeated, but Carver Montgomery, the reason why they are so good, they go from 6A to 7A. You're like, how could a 6A school all of a sudden become a powerhouse in 7A? Well, they absorbed Sidney Lanier, who was also a 6A school that decided to close the doors of their campus. And so that's why you have this powerhouse in 7A that has never been on this stage in 7A before. And that's why Carver Montgomery, I mean, they got a lot of talent. It's hard to put all that talent together and get out on the gridiron, but Carver Montgomery's pulling it off. It's like a college football team that has a bunch of transfer portal players. But Carver Montgomery, 5-1, have an incredible season so far.
All right. Next, you got Auburn hosting Smith Station. This is going to be a blowout. Calvary on the road at Westfield, you think could be an upset. I'm not leaning that yet. But I think that Calvary did look, you know what, they did look improved, Richard. So I'm going to say that Calvary is going to keep it competitive, hopefully, in that first half.
Yeah, Westfield School is a 3A school in the GIAA. They're ranked second behind Valwood. I do think that Calvary is going to continue to improve. They're going to score multiple touchdowns on Westfield, but I don't know what the score is going to be. But I think that they are going to, I'm not going to say keep it close, but you're going to see improvements from this team. That they are going to be able to figure out the offense. And Nate Osborne, he's been under duress the whole season. He's going to find a way to make some plays, whether it's Luke Scoggins, Josh Jackson, get TJ and Benson in the backfield. I think that, Nate Stokes, I mean, they got some offensive weapons. I do think that Calvary is going to improve.
Yeah, I do too. And that's all we want. We want to see them improve and getting better and better each and every week. All right. Wiley at Lee Scott. You got Elmore and Valley, and you got Trinity Christian at Troop. But here is your Week 9 slate, Richard.
Pretty good slate of games for Week 9. And, the seasons will be here. Will be done before you know it. I do want to say one thing, Thrift, because of Hurricane Helene, the GHSA decided to extend the regular season all the way out to November the 8th. So the playoffs won't start until November 15th. So some of those games, I know that our schools in Columbus were not really affected by that, but a lot of these schools that have not played for 2 weeks, because there's still some schools in the Augusta area that have not played football yet. They're going to use that week because there was a lot of region games that got canceled. They're going to use that week to reschedule. And finally, I do want to mention Appalachia High School, a very just emotional moment. They returned to the football field against Jackson County. I think that this was very important for the community, for Appalachia High School to get back out on the football field. And I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, exactly right, Richard. All right, rest of the week, here's what's happening on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Tomorrow we have volleyball, Lee Scott and Glenwood. We also got, you're doing softball, Sly County at Calvary. We got coaches shows. Tuesday we got Columbus Shaw softball. And then we also got another softball game, Brookstone and Calvary. Wednesday, the Pacelli Coach Show, Muskogee County office hour show. And then Thursday, Unsolicited Hot Take. We also got the last softball game for Calvary, and you'll be there for that at 5:30. And then a triple header, Midtown Showdown. We also got Harris County Stars Mills. And then the final game is Brookstone and Pacelli. And then this upcoming, because this was the playoffs this week at CV Hoots Per Practice Foley, we'll have that on next week. It's championship semifinals. Make sure to tune in on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Thank you for watching the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. You're ready to smile.